Hello and welcome to a new video. This time we will be discussing a new base that I made and that I used in leaks with really great results. I didn't really want to make this video now because the MLCW season is still ongoing. However, multiple people reported to me that my base was stolen, so I figured that it was time to finally release it. The base was made combining my last two YouTube videos, so the single Inferno base was modified to implement into that base the X-bow setup that I described, and what I obtained was a base with an X-bow farm near the town hall, so essentially all the X-bows near the town hall. Of course, this base was quite hard to make because having all X-bows on the town hall means that I basically have no DPS on the other side of the base. So as usual, I will describe step by step how I built the base, the weaknesses that I found, and how I try to counter them. If you want a base link, since at this point the base is burnt, you can find it into the description. Now, before starting with the video, I want to showcase some defenses that I actually got in League Wars. This screenshot is from MLCW, and you can see that me and 𝙼𝚘𝚛𝚎 both defended. Second screenshot from CWL Light, my base once again really doing great. CWL Light yet again, and in the top part of the screenshot you can see that my base was 1-starred twice, and you will understand why when I will show you the base, but essentially I was 1-starred twice and they had only one more hit, and so of course they tried to clear me. Finally succeeded, but as a result they had to leave another Town Hall 12 up, which was once again nicer. Then here I have CWL Light yet again, and yet again the base is performing strong. These are the final defensive stats of the CWL season that we competed in, and this is the first page, so essentially the best base builders in the league, or at least the people with the best bases. So, being in the first page is by all means a great achievement, considering that I used the same base throughout the whole CWL Light. And my final stats are 6 triple out of 16 attempts on my base, which you can see on the bottom half. However, if you consider that in the first weeks I was essentially freshed because I did not test the base, and so the base was then tweaked and the base defended a lot. If you take out the 2 times when I was freshed, you will obtain a final score of 4 out of 14, which would qualify me as essentially the top 4 defender into the whole league. Of course, my actual defending stat is 6 out of 16, because it was my fault that the base was not tested the first weeks. However, I still think that this is a really great indicator of how good the base is. Now, this is MLCW, and in the screenshot you can see the only 2 bases, only Town Hall 12 bases that actually defended. So Simple defended once, and then my base basically held all the other defenses. And this is the last screenshot. This is the CWL Premier into the playoffs, and this is actually not my account because the base was copied and used by another person, which I do not know. However, you can see that the base still performed really good. So I just wanted to wrap this part up, and then we can start with the base. Okay, so this is the base, and one thing that you may be thinking is, okay, very cool, but how do I even start building a base with this style? Because this is not really the common Town Hall 12 base building style. And of course, you start every climbing of the Everest with one small little step. And in this case, my first step was the Town Hall compartment. So the Town Hall compartment is essentially a square so that the Town Hall would not be walkable. And originally I had one hall around the Town Hall, but I was forced to move the Town Hall near the edge of the map because I couldn't really fit buildings otherwise. And as you know, you use an hall when the funnel is hard. In this case, funnel is easy. So I close the hall so that the attacker would be forced to use a super wall breaker. Also here I have another round of walls, and this is because I want the attacker to avoid doing a king sui for the town hall and then a queen charge around here. So since I have 2 layers of walls, the attacker is forced to use 2 super wall breakers if he wants to use a king sui for the town hall. And of course this means that the king sui is most likely not going to happen, also because I have the clan castle around here. And one last thing, you know that I have a lot of spaces near the town hall, and that's because if I want, I can try to fit a Tesla farm inside to stop the sui, or maybe since these are non-defensive buildings and loons, stone slammer will go around, I can also try to fit some maybe SAMs for a potential blimp into the town hall. However, I will explain trapping in the other part of the video. So after the town hall section, I made my queen section, and if you remember the video, I hope that you watched all my other videos. These expos are 4 tiles apart because I do not want them to be freezable together, and same for the other expos. Now the warden is in front of the queen because a likely queen charge will come from here. So as you can see, I have walls here so that the attacker cannot queen charge into here, but he will have to queen charge around and then into the queen. So a queen charge around here has queen, clan castle, and both will be buffed by the grand warden. I also have my bomb tower in front so that if the attacker is doing a king sui or a normal sui, then the barbarians which are spawned by the king ability will aggro into the bomb tower and then die. My expos are on air because I noticed that the queen charge will fail or require a lot of spells anyways. This one is on ground because I want to cover a potential sui into the town hall, and also because it has a bigger reach and so it can still reach around this area. The sweeper, if you want, could be rotated, but in my case I had it like this to be a little bit of a bait, and also to cover Lalo in case they wanted to do Lalo from this area. For the clan castle choice, I recommend to have DPS clan castle, which could be, for example, rocket loons super minions or headhunters super minions. And this is because, especially for rocket loons, the attacker is forced to freeze rocket loons, but also freeze the DPS, but also rage the queen, all at the same time if he's doing a queen charge around here. And now the clan castle may be good for a fresh hit because it can stall the queen. However, for future hits, the attacker may just do a sui or queen charge away from the clan castle and then just use Lalo or dragons into the clan castle. And so for this reason, I think that DPS clan castle is the best opinion. And a good chunk of the attacks that failed on me were due to my DPS clan castle because they couldn't really keep the queen alive due to all the DPS, rocket loons and super minions. Now on the other side of the base I have this inferno compartment, which is nothing really special, it's just an unwalkable inferno compartment with no defensive buildings inside, so that pathing into the inferno would be a little bit harder for let's say loons or stone slammer. Maybe the attacker wants to do a zap on the inferno and then warden walk around here, but as you can see you could have the Tesla farm around here, or maybe you could just move these trash buildings around to have a Tesla farm around here. So you can basically move the Tesla farm around against the hits that you are most likely to face. Now for the core, I have a big core, and this is because I did not want a jump to connect the town hall and this inferno. And also here I have these walls so that these wizard towers are not walkable from this inferno and would require another jump. Also here I have some space in the core, so if you want to move the Tesla farm in the core, you can still move the Tesla farm. And this storage is meant to stall dragons, so that after that I have a lot of air DPS coming into dragons. Now for the infernos, this inferno compartment is meant against a potential sui or queen charge into that. Since I have wall pieces, it's hard to funnel anything into the inferno, Maybe you can consider funneling this area out and then maybe the king into the inferno, but it's not really easy. And yet again, you could have some Teslas around here to just mess it up. Now, one thing to notice is that this inferno is a little bit away from the queen, which means that if the attacker wants to use butts around this area, he will get honestly great value because he has 3 air expos which he can get, their defense and the warden, which is why I recommend to have only 1 air defense at maximum in this setup. You can maybe consider 2 if you have an inferno which is covering at least 1. However, in the way that I built the setup, I cannot have 2 air defenses because then the Sui value or Bat value would be too much. You could also consider having 0 air defenses into this spot, but honestly then my question is where do you even think that you can place the air defenses around the base? So this was the reasoning for the first half of the base. Now here I have 1 air defense with some defenses in front, and the idea is that if the attacker wants to do a loon trade or super loon trade, then he will be forced to basically kill other defenses before accessing the air defense. And also, if you notice, throughout the whole base I have no zap value with the air defense. So basically no defense that can target air is zappable with the air defense. Yes, here you can zap the Expo and the Warden, but they will not die due to the zap into their defense. Or maybe you could consider having like a lot more zaps to kill this whole area. But you will see later on why I don't really think that this is a good option. Now here I have some wall pieces so that the king cannot really easily go into the wizard towers. And then even if the king goes into my wizard towers, I have my own king to protect them. And also this means that here I could have a Tesla farm if I wanted to. And you may be saying, but why do you even have wizard towers one near another? Because they can be frozen together. And yes, but honestly, looking at the base, I did not have other spots for wizard towers. Maybe like here, but it's not really a good spot. And I think that by having 2 wizard towers close to each other, I am forcing a freeze. Whereas if I had 1 wizard tower, let's say this wizard tower maybe around here, then I would essentially force no spells, especially for the wizard tower. So I think that this can at least force 1 spell. Now, last part of the base is the eagle. And I know that a lot of dragon hits have a Sui into the eagle and then dragons into the rest of the base essentially. Which is why this air defense is a little bit back. Because if I had their defense, let's say here, then a Sui would be quite easy to get their defense and the eagle. However, by doing so, my air defense is a little bit harder to get. And then I also have this sweeper. The sweeper is annoying in terms of Lalo and dragons if you start them into the eagle. And then it can also be used as bait, because if you consider doing a Sui into the eagle, you will get eagle, air defense, a lot of defenses that can target air, and then maybe you can consider using dragons on the rest of the base. And especially if you use dragons around here, then this sweeper will not be annoying, and so this may be a potential option with a blimp behind the dragons to take down the town hall. And this setup, I hope that you recognize the setup from my anti-witches video, and of course you will see the traps later, but this is essentially a setup to force golems and super giants inside, and then witches outside where I have traps. Also notice how here I do not have buildings that are targetable by super goblins, because I do not really want super goblins to go around here and trigger my anti-witches traps. It's also cool to notice that this wizard tower is not reachable from the eagle compartment because I have 3 diagonal tiles. So essentially, the way that you should try to build a base like this is, okay, I can start with maybe a compartment that I like, and then, for example, the town hall, and then I can do the queen compartment on one side, an inferno on the other. Now, why the queen near the town hall? Because if I have all the X-bows away from the town hall, for example, near the eagle, let's say, then a queen charge or sui into the town hall would be honestly too easy. And the town hall is way more valuable than any other defenses in town hall 12. So the setup needs to be near the town hall if I have all the DPS on it. And then, for example, here I have the Inferno and not the Eagle, because a Sui for Town Hall and Eagle would be too good. So I have Town Hall and Inferno. And then for the core, I have a core that cannot be jumped. So you cannot jump from the Town Hall into the Inferno. And here I have a lot of dead zones, so that if you try to do a queen charge, of course funnel is hard, but if you try to do a queen charge and you get your funnel right, you are forced to essentially try to jump over the dead zones. If I had no dead zone, then you could, let's say, queen charge the eagle, and then wall break here, and then wall break again. But with all my dead zone, you are forced to jump, and so you are forced to use more spells for the queen charge, and then you have less spells for whatever is backend. And one last thing that you may ask me is, but why here you have a big dead zone, and also the Inferno is reachable from this dead zone if I were to, let's say, Blizzard? And the answer is, number one, I can fit a Tesla farm into here. Number two, if you try to Blizzard, I have this air defense, and if you try to use, for example, an Hound to tank, this air defense will aggro the Hound, and then I could have maybe Sams around here to kill your blimp. If you make this invisible, then of course the Hound will go into here or into here, but essentially it will not be able to target this area. And the final point is that I don't even care if you Blizzard, because you can get this Inferno, but you cannot get this other Inferno. So there is not enough Blizzard value to even justify, in my opinion at least, a Blizzard. So now let's look at the traps on this base, and let's see why I did the traps that way. Now let's talk about the trapping side of the base. To understand how to trap a base, we need to consider what are the most likely attacks that we will face in League Wars, and then how these attacks could be applied to this particular base. So the most used attacks, I would say, that are Zap Witches, Zap Dragons, Super Witches, and then a little bit less Queen Charge Lalo, Sui Lalo, Queen Charge Hybrid, and then even less Queen Charge Dragons. So let's go in order. For Zap Witches, we know that the attackers tend to zap the side Infernos, so this one and this one, and then send the log launcher opposite of the Town Hall to open up whatever is left in terms of key defense. So these are the two key defenses, this is the Town Hall, so if we do a line, basically the log launcher would need to be around here. At the start, we notice that there are these walls which make the Wizard Tower not walkable from this zone, and also tend to split the troops between this side and this side. So actually the troops that will go inside are a little bit less. And then also this Tesla farm, paired with all the DPS that I have, manages to kill whatever tanking troop the attacker is using, so a golem or maybe multiple super giants. I also have the springs, which are very good against super giants. And then if the witches survive, they will go into witches bombs, and then also splash and point defenses. So essentially this flank will almost die completely around this zone. On the other part of the base, I have nothing against witches, and that's because I know that whatever will go into my Queen X-bows and basically splash zone will die in terms of witches. So I don't really need to have particular traps against that. And also I need to have traps against other things in my base. Now someone may consider witches with the 𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚱. However, in this case, I don't really think that it is viable, because you have no jump value from the town hall into the rest of the base. For example, if this was maybe smaller, you could consider jumping from the town hall into the Inferno and maybe doing a zap witches this way. However, in this particular base, I made the core bigger for this exact purpose, and so you can't jump from the town hall into any other key defense apart from this Inferno. And so even if you try to do witches with the 𝚑𝚎𝚱, you would fail, or at least time fail. Now, in terms of dragons, Queen Charge dragons, honestly, I won't even consider, because it's not really used. So we will consider to trap Zap Sui dragons first. So in terms of Sui, the most likely Sui spots are the Town Hall, the Eagle, and maybe an Inferno Tower if there is good value around it, for example air defenses, or maybe the Queen, and so on. So we already discussed about the Town Hall, so you can try to Sui the Town Hall, but you won't really get anything after that, because of all the DPS that I have, plus the Clan Castle. So most people tend not to Sui the Town Hall when they use Dragon in this base. They may Sui the Inferno Tower, and then they will have these two air defenses also taken out with the Inferno. However, there is one issue, that after the Sui, if they send the dragons from here into the Town Hall, they will have to deal with the Sweeper, and they will have to tomb through the Town Hall. And I also have all the backend defenses and traps, so they won't really make it that far. On the other hand, if they Sui here, start dragons opposite of the Town Hall with a beam behind, then the Eagle is really annoying to deal with, because they will have the Eagle, the Sweeper, and all these point defenses that can target air. So it's quite annoying to start dragons into the Eagle. And for this reason, the most used spot for a Sui is Eagle, because they can get Eagle, Sweeper, air defense. And then I can create a good pathing around here, so dragons will go into the Town Hall with the blimp behind. Now, of course, I know that this is the most likely Sui spot, and that's why I have my Tesla farm around here. So the Sui now is a little bit harder, and sometimes it does not even get this air defense. But even if the Sui gets their defense, it's no problem, because they will have no way to take down the Town Hall. Let me explain. Now, most dragon hits come from around here. They may consider using a Stone Slammer into the Inferno, but then the Stone Slammer will have these two SAMs and this Air Skeleton Trap and the Air Expo, and will die, and the Loons will go into the Queen or into the triple red air bombs and will die. Stone Slammer may also be dropped into the Queen and then will also die due to all the DPS that I have. So usually the Stone Slammer is not a good idea on this base, so they will use the blimp from behind the dragons. Now, the dragons will go into these Infernos and the SAMs will trigger. It's important to point out that I have the SAMs a little bit away from each other, because, for example, I had this setup before, and both SAMs ended up targeting the same dragon, and usually this dragon is half dead, so essentially I would have two SAMs targeting the same dragon, but only one was really needed. So by spreading them a little bit, I can manage to target two different dragons, or the same dragon if it has enough HP to survive one. And also it's important to have SAMs so that the Inferno is in range of the SAMs. For example, this is good, you can see the range, but this is too far. So for example here, if they drop a Stone Slammer, maybe it will not trigger the SAM. Also here is too far. So maybe you can go it like this, but it's important that the Inferno is covered by the SAM if you suspect that they may use a Stone Slammer. Of course, they won't really use a Stone Slammer with dragons, but with Lalo in this base. But now for dragons, they will start dragons around here with a beam behind, and they will tomb around the Inferno. Of course, if they tomb too early, then they will have to face the Expos, and if they tome a little bit later on, they will face these two SAMs, and maybe even these SAMs. The key point here, however, is the blimp, because the blimp will target the town hall and will come from behind the dragons. The blimp will get stuck into the tornado when the blimp is tomed. Then the blimp will go out of the tornado and out of the tomb, and these two SAMs will instantly kill the blimp, along with all the DPS that I have. What does this mean? Well, basically the blimp will drop into the sweeper, and then loons usually go into this expose and away from the town hall. Sometimes the attacker is lucky and loons go into the expose and into the town hall. You may consider, for example, doing it like this, so that loons go always into the expo, but I don't really think that an expo right here is a good idea for all the reasons that I explained before. So usually this setup makes sure that loons go away from the town hall. And actually I had a lot of 1-star defenses, and most of them were against witches and dragons, as I explained before. This skeleton trap is also used to protect a little bit the queen, because as you can see, the skeleton trap will trigger a little bit before the queen, if you look at the ranges, and so the queen will be able to shoot dragons while the skeleton is stalling them, essentially. And this is all for dragons. Now, in terms of super witches, I don't really think that super witches are viable in this base, and that's because, as I said before, I have no jump value. And so even if they start from, let's say, from around here, tome and jump into the town hall, then what can they do? They can maybe jump here and maybe jump here, but there is this inferno. Or maybe they can zap this inferno, wall break around here, and have a first jump and let's say second jump, but then I will still have the eagle up. And also having no holes means that the base is more prone to time fails than a base with holes. So this is also one good factor. And for this reason, super witches are not used much against this base. And also sometimes they tend to use the siege barrack around here, and then the siege barrack will clear a little bit of this side. So let's suppose zap here, super witches into the town hall, queen expose, clan castle will aggro the super witches, and then the siege barrack is dropped into here. The siege barrack ox will usually go into this inferno, but here I have double infernos plus 2 giant bombs, and so the ox almost instantly die, and they are not able to take down the inferno tower. Now let's consider the queen charge hits. As I said, queen charge dragons are not really used a lot, and I already have traps against dragons, so I won't really focus on defending that. As for the other queen charges, so queen charge Lalo and queen charge hybrid, let's consider what are the possible queen charges. So one may consider doing a queen charge into the eagle with a jump right here, and then maybe another jump right here. But as you know, a queen charge with a jump is quite spell expensive. So most people tend to use a queen charge with super wall breakers, as opposed to a jump. So the vast majority of queen charges comes into the inferno and then town hall, or into the expose and then town hall. Now let's consider a queen charge that comes into inferno and town hall. Of course the attacker needs to start from here then, if the queen charge starts into here. But then Lalo into the sweeper is not really good, for all the reasons that we explained before. And so queen charge into inferno town hall does not really mean that they will do a Lalo here, or at least they may try to Lalo, but it's not really that easy, in my opinion. And so usually if they try to Lalo, the queen charge has to come from here, and then Lalo is from here. But as I already said, I have the SAMs plus air skeleton against the stone slammer, also red air bombs. Also here they may need to freeze or maybe tome or whatever, and also this backend is not really easy to deal with. So Lalo is usually countered, and I need to point out that usually Lalo fails also due to the Lalo, but sometimes also due to the queen charge that fails due to all the DPS that I have here. Now, for queen charge hybrid, usually they try to queen charge Inferno Town Hall and then hybrid from this side. And as you can see, I have a lot of traps that will trigger at the start. The Tesla farm will not be easy to deal with. And also I have basically 6 springs against only hybrid, and so they will kill a good amount of troops. In addition, the king will stall troops while they are under splash damage, and so this will kill even more troops. And so far, few people have tried hybrid and all have failed. There was also one person who has tried queen charge into here and then hybrid into here, but it also failed, although I had essentially no traps against that. Yes, I had this double giant bomb against Hogs, so also against hybrid coming from this way, but honestly I had no springs. So basically this covers the vast majority of hits, and then we also have 𝙼𝚘𝚛𝚎. When an attacker does 𝙼𝚘𝚛𝚎, the zap is usually in the core Inferno, so it wouldn't really make sense to zap this Wizard Tower, because I may or may not have Tesla farm, and because a Wizard Tower is not really that much of a deal. Even if you try to zap, it's usually not worth enough. So usually this Inferno is zapped, but then I have a Tesla which pops up, and essentially, even if they zap the Inferno, if they don't know that the Tesla is here and they don't zap the Tesla, then Loons will still go into the triple red air bombs, Tesla and Tornado. And of course, if they try to do a 𝙼𝚘𝚎, usually they tend to sui the queen or tend to sui the town hall. I have not seen a 𝙼𝚘𝚎 with sui into the eagle because I don't really think that it is enough value. So usually they try to do a sui into the queen, and then maybe blimp the town hall or tom into the town hall, or maybe they zap this area and then sui into the town hall, or then maybe sui the town hall with the queen and sui the Inferno with the king. And after all these hits, usually Lalo comes from this air defense or from this air defense, so the same clockwise pathing that we described before. And so for these reasons, usually the base has performed good, defending let's say 3 to 4 hits per war, apart from, as I said, the first hits when the base was not tested. So this is the final look at the base. Remember that if you want the base link, you can find it into the description. This is the end of the video, thanks for watching, and as usual, if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to write them below the video, or just message me on Discord. My Discord tag is in the description. Also, if you want to order a custom 𝚘𝚛 base, also message me on Discord. I want to end the video with this screenshot. As you know, I said at the start of this video that I won't be using the base anymore because a lot of clans have stolen it and essentially know where the traps are and have the base for friendly challenges if I ever use it again against them. So I decided to not use the base anymore, and this is MLCW so far. So MLCW Archer Queen division, and as you can see, I am the second best defender in the entire division. And the first one actually is a guy that Marinol made a video about, and he defended like 8 or 9 times in one war. So I don't know if his base is actually OP or maybe the enemy clan is bad at attacking his base. Either way, I think that finishing second in the entire division, even if after only 2 wars, has proved yet again that this base is very consistent, and I hope that everyone can take maybe a thing or two that I said in the video and try to apply it in their own bases. Thank you.